on becoming. Some people you never forget. After a few weeks in my first principalship, I unearthed several of my elementary school report cards while unpacking books and artifacts. I was instantly transported to one of my former schools. I saw the face of my grade school principal. Principals were mean, I thought. They were folk who never smiled, they didn't skip, they didn't fly kites, they didn't run or jump. I believe they never had a skipper. They weren't free spirited enough to throw flat rocks into a lake. I secretly believed our principal didn't have a childhood, a home, a life. The last thing I wanted to be was a principal. Mr. Winstead was my principal. He was knee high to a nickel with a smattering of gray hair. He donned bland suits that swallowed him whole and wore battered brown, lackluster loafers. I despised his shoes. I was appalled his shoes were so ugly. They weren't befitting a man responsible for a school peopled with growing children. His shoes must have had stories to tell. Mr. Winstead didn't take mess from anyone, not parents, not school board members, and certainly not students. He often resorted to standing behind his desk to create the illusion of authority and power. Somehow it worked. As children, we lived in constant fear of him. From our perspective, Mr. Winstead never saw us as more than what we were at that time in our lives. We were typical kids who did typical kid things. He didn't like me, or so I thought. Was it my glasses, my scrawny frame? Was he intimidated by my briefcase? Yes, I carried a briefcase from fifth grade until the end of high school. I'll never know because Mr. Winstead didn't let us get to know him. I never saw him in classes. He didn't speak to us in the hallway. Woe to the student who messed up and had to head to his office. We dreaded that place. He seemed to relish the impact the room had on us. His memory was like that of an elephant. Once you did the misdeed, you could rest assured he'd never forget it. One day in class, after not feeling challenged in months, I lost myself in witnessing everyday occurrences. Terry Bryant is mouthing a colorful word or two at Miss Easton. A spider is scaling the radiator. Did he actually say what I think he just said to Miss Easton? I wonder how far away the spider lives. Dang, she swung her paddle at Terry's behind like a major league baseball player. Was that spider male or female? Little did I know that ADHD and giftedness were an undiscovered, challenging mix for a boy child in Alabama bored with a stack of worksheets. Miss Easton, unequipped with the resources to connect with academically gifted students, snatched me from my dubious imaginings and hauled me off to see the principal. I recoiled as Mr. Winstead ushered me down the corridor, warning me I'd end up in the principal's office for the rest of my life if I didn't shape up. And I did shape up. Thank goodness for witty, insightful teachers in the upper grades who knew I was not a finished product. Thank goodness for brilliant and engaging college professors who encouraged my transformation. My professors and teachers saw my schoolmates and I not as we were, but as we were becoming. Of course, I've made it to the principal's office countless times since as the principal. Now, like most good stories, it doesn't really end there. I did not know that Mr. Winstead and one of my hometown doctors attended the same church. For over 20 years, my accomplishments were the topic of conversation between the two distinguished parishioners. When this wild child got his first teaching job, Mr. Winstead knew and kept note. He knew of each promotion and stood with pride as I took my first principalship. The man who wore the lackluster loafers I held in such disdain as a child sent regards to me through my doctor when I became a principal, and then magnet school director, and then an area superintendent. My hometown doctor said Mr. Winstead beamed with pride each time, saying, I knew Tony had it in him all along.